Welcome to Bold Voices, Soft Hearts, a podcast featuring stories of finding passion through pain. We're so glad you're joining us. Here's our episode for the day.
Welcome back to Bold Voices, Soft Hearts. I've been a little away for a while and just taken some much needed rest after a very busy March with World Down Syndrome Day and advocating and all the stuff that I love, but my body was just burnt out and so was my mind. So I wanted to refuel and recharge and get ready to launch back up. And I'm here just having discussions with amazing people talking about finding your passion through pain. And today I'm welcoming my dear friend Amanda, who is in the Down syndrome community with us, but she brings a whole new sort of level to the world before she had a child with Down syndrome. And I'm going to be exploring that with her. And Amanda, I just could not be happier that you're here. So
I'm
welcome.
so excited. It's going to be great.
Yay. Great. So give us the Cliff's Notes version of your life, and then we'll dive deep.
Yeah, so I grew up in a town in East Texas. I'm the oldest of three girls, so it was a very emotional house. And both of my parents have kind of fluctuated between ministry and education throughout the course of my childhood. So we mainly kind of stayed in the same places, but I grew up kind of from the perspective of seeing what education looked like from a child's perspective, and it gave me a really great passion for children who bring a lot to the table when it comes to the school-based environment. And when I went to college at Abilene Christian, I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. And so I kind of bounced around to a lot of different majors and potentials, and kind of landed in the field of social work. And I tell people all the time that I am a very emotions driven person for the most part. And it just felt right. And the work that I was getting to do in internships and hours just felt holy and good and just like it was meant to be. And so when I finished at ACU, I went ahead and got my master's and moved to Wichita Falls, Texas, where I have lived since, and had the opportunity to start my career in foster care, which I would recommend for anyone who is new to the social work profession. It really allowed me to see the positives and negatives of the child welfare system and to also figure out kind of what I wanted my calling to be. I spent 3 years with a foster care agency that licensed families, and a good portion of my job there was doing behavioral work and learning about trauma and the way that it impacts the brain. And so after those 3 years that I spent there, I transitioned into a role with Head Start in our local public school system. And I worked specifically with 3 through 5 year olds who come from at-risk homes. And that can be for a lot of different reasons. It can be based on socioeconomic status, on disability, on all kinds of things. And I spent almost a decade there doing primarily behavioral intervention and working with children who, for a variety of reasons, didn't really have a foundation for emotional regulation and teaching them how to regulate their little bodies. And it was hard work and good work. And during that time at Head Start, I had my daughter Lucy, who is 4. She was born in 2020, much like Jed. So in the midst of the COVID craziness,
Yep.
and it changed everything for me.
Yeah.
It made a huge impact on the work that I was doing, not only in looking at things from a trauma-informed lens, but also finding a passion and a heart for families who are experiencing diagnosis for the first time in the public school system.
Yeah.
Um, and I say it all the time that I am so lucky that I had the opportunity to grieve Lucy's diagnosis before she was even born.
Mm.
And so by the time she was born, I had done a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And it made pregnancy really, tough, but I had that benefit of knowing for sure. And in working with families in that public school environment, I was really able to see what that grieving process looked like in a complete stranger looking at your child who you'd known for years and telling you that they had a diagnosis. And um, it became a really, I use this term, loosely, but it became a very holy experience in walking with them through that grief and helping them understand the layers and how how difficult that process can be and that it's lifelong.
Yeah.
Um, and so it changed what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, which was working with families of children who had disabilities.
Mm.
Um, and I am very grateful for that big, significant change.
Yeah. I have so many thoughts as you're talking, but one thing that just popped into my head today, and I'd be interested to know if you've heard this response too. But when I got Jed's diagnosis, and even sometimes now, like when I'll share some of the bullying that will happen online with trolls and things like that, people just go, I don't understand. Like, and it's a beautiful sentiment. Like, Jed is so beautiful, and how could anyone say such horrible things? And we live in a more evolved world now, and all the terrible things from back, like it's almost like this like rose-colored thing, which
Mhm.
I probably would have been a part of before Jed. Like, how could anyone not, right? And I'm so curious to know, like, I would imagine you were just the same. Like how wonderful, like you see the problems, but you're also like, oh, this child is so worthy of like being cared for and being you loved and all those things. And then all of a sudden it's in your backyard. And
Mhm.
I think that a big piece that is missed is that if you don't have someone in your life very closely that has the thing that you're saying, oh, you know,
Mhm.
it's very difficult to understand the grief that can come with thinking you were going to have one life, but you have a different life, and it doesn't take away the love at all, but it
Mhm.
changes the course of your entire life. And I
Yeah.
would be curious to know, like, as you were sitting on the outside, caring
Mhm.
for families like ours to some degree, did you see that? Was there a big chasm between how you were and what you have become and are becoming?
Oh, absolutely. I put my life into this, before Lucy and after Lucy category, right? And before Lucy, Amanda was not a I would like to think, was not a bad person. I'm a social worker, and so I was very cognizant of the bias that I brought to my practice, and or I work to be, and the ways that I could improve and change things. But it's very much like you said, where it's impersonal.
Mm,
And you don't really know the right things to say. And so you try to make people feel better, right?
mm,
And, I hear it described this way with friendship a lot, that true friends can sit with you in your grief and your heaviness and feel comfortable there. They don't feel like they have to pull you somewhere else. And I think that's the best way to describe the difference between what I experienced before and after. That often before I felt this need to usher families through this process and say, but it's going to be fine. And here are all the ways that it's going to be fine. And let me give you resources and examples of other people. And I didn't stop doing those things after Lucy, but it was this idea that it's okay if it's not fine right now.
yep.
And in fact, it's better. if it's not fine right now. Because the reality of the situation is, and I wrote about this in my book, that when I found out that I was going to have a baby, I built this little pocket in my heart for her.
Yeah.
And it was meticulous and it, probably had a lot of, buffalo plaid or, I don't know. The point being that I had this very meticulous space. And when Lucy was not going to be what I had created,
Mhm.
that part, a door was shut and it grows old with age and it, is dusty and there's, cobwebs because that child, even if I had a different child later, that child will never exist.
Right.
And so instead, she built something new. It didn't erase what was already there, but she built something completely new. And she blew out some walls and she hung some streamers. And, I talk about her blasting Pat Benatar. And, she created this space that was in many ways so much better than what I had created for her,
Mhm.
but different. And if I pretend like that empty space doesn't exist,
Yep.
it doesn't make the situation better. It doesn't prove my love for her anymore.
Mhm.
It just is saying like this is a reality and it hurts and that's okay. And
Right.
I think once you know that, yeah, you interact with families completely differently.
Well, and you and I have talked about how there's probably always all throughout this journey with our kids with Down syndrome and probably with our typical kids because parenting is hard. Like thinking, "Oh, I've got this kicked. Like I know how to do this." And then all of a sudden you're like, "What? Why am I sad about this?" You and I have admitted to each other, "Wow, I was really sad when this happened at a play date or this I didn't expect to be like knocked over by this thing." And I think that that's a part of that, as you articulated so beautifully, like sometimes that recognition of that grief makes this sweet so much sweeter because
Mhm.
you're allowing yourself to have those little mini, I wouldn't even call them mini, but just like real time grieving moments of what you expected and what life actually is. And
Mhm.
actually, Lucy Claire is amazing. Jed is amazing, and it looks different, and it's amazing.
Yes.
The and
Well, and we see it all the time, right? With our neurotypical kids, it's the idea of like, the dad who never went D1 in football, who's on the sideline screaming at his kid who really just wants to pick flowers. Like we all do that to an extent. We have this idea of who our children will be.
yes,
And if we can name it what it is, which is this is my stuff, this is my grief,
yes,
then
yes.
we can appreciate the kids that we actually have.
For sure. I feel like the example you just gave is a very Texas example. And
Probably.
like no, any place that's really into like sports and football and like that is so what I would picture. And I found on the East Coast living here in the past 12 years that it's all about academics everywhere. Like we got to go to an Ivy League. We got to like have a well-paying job. I'm going to be in finance. Like it's just all about like climbing that corporate ladder. And then all of a sudden you have a child that like that it probably won't be the reality for them. They
Mhm.
probably might have many other successes that look different than what you'd expected, but it's probably not going to be that path
Right.
that you like sought out. But
Yeah.
identifying those things that, like you said, that this has been something that I thought would always be, and it's different now.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because okay, so what I didn't share before is that you are now, so I want you to talk about so we work at Rod's Heroes together, and at Rod's Heroes, we are seeking to uncover the superpowers of individuals with Down syndrome, and we're doing that on so many levels, and a lot of it comes through adoption and through through storytelling and through advocating in the community. But I would love to just hear how first talk to us about what you're doing, and second, like how did that path that you were on that you described in the beginning, like prepare you for like what you're gonna do on this team?
Mhm. Yeah. First of all, I am the director of operations at Rod's Heroes. I've been with Rod's for almost 2 months now. So still definitely new to this journey. And I love it. That's an understatement. Um, and I think that, and I talked to my mom about this. She's wonderful. Shout out, mom, if you're watching this. Um, that I feel like for so long, I describe myself often as kind of this idea of a balloon, right? And I float around and I don't have much tethering me to the ground.
Mm.
And it's partially because I'm an emotionally driven person and partially because that I'm dramatic and there's a lot of, things that go into that. And
The choir
as
here, girl.
time, I'm telling you, but as time has gone on, there are these specific moments and people and experiences that have tied themselves around me and tethered me to the ground.
Yep.
And it gives me a sense of balance and purpose and space.
Mm.
And I think that one of the biggest things is my experience with Lucy's diagnosis and having these people who helped ground me where I was and figure out what that looked like for me.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that it gave me a sense of purpose, a sense of, this is why I
Yeah.
have gone on this journey. And what a testimony, if people are people of faith, which I am, what a testimony to, the foundation being laid for me.
Yep.
And I love that I have the opportunity to ideally and hopefully in every facet of my life, breathe that into others, into these vulnerable populations and people who are consistently moving in spaces where they are unwelcomed and unloved.
Mm.
And I think that that's what it has given me most is recognizing like what a beautiful and heavy
Yeah.
um, responsibility.
Mm.
It doesn't mean I'm any better or any more prepared than anybody else, but I'm very grateful for it because it's grown me as a human, as a social. I'm a 10 times better social worker being Lucy's mom than I ever was before
Mm.
because I've seen firsthand what it looks like when systems are built against her. And as, a white, middle class, educated woman, that was not something that I experienced growing up.
Yeah.
And I am grateful to have at least a little glimpse of what that looks like
Mm.
in parenting her.
Mm.
And it makes me a lot more open to conversations and examination of myself than I ever was before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really a beautiful thing. And as when you came onto the team with Rod's Heroes, I thought, as you just described, like becoming a better social worker, I feel like now in this role that you're in, as we travel to Armenia and we start to connect with people in all different cultures and around the country, what experience and personal passion you're going to be able to bring to this endeavor of just like you have your Lucy Claire, but you also have your background and you also have the changes that you just described that happened when Lucy was born. And that is just, I don't know. We talked about faith, and I don't see anything else but God in that. That
Mhm.
like you were groomed is the wrong word. You prepared your whole life
Right.
for something of this sort, and God is like fashioning all that about you, and I feel that in my own life too. But it's so neat when you see it in someone else and you get to bear
Mm.
witness to it. And I feel like over our friendship, here's the funny part, guys. Amanda, I consider such a dear friend, and we've never even met in person.
True. Never in
We're that
person.
weird, like online couple that has never met. We're not a couple, I'm joking, but You know what I mean? Like online dating. But it's so funny because we're gonna meet in July at NDSC, and I'm just like, what how cool is this gonna be that I get to meet such a dear person in my life? But it's just such a wonderful full circle thing. And then you're not done yet. Like you're not even halfway through your life. And so what God is gonna continue to do in and through you, like I can't wait to watch. And does it feel like that in you, or does it feel like like what on the day to day, you feel
Yeah.
where you're standing is like this is what I'm meant for?
I feel that kind of that guidance very poignantly in this season of my life, because I felt a lot of doors being closed that I thought would be the right fits for me, right? Um, and one thing that has been really heavy for me, and then something that sometimes does lend itself to the heaviness, is I think that I've been very convicted in the idea that in order to be the best mom that I can be for Lucy, it requires a lot of introspection and a lot of recognition that there are things that are important to me as her mom that, again, have nothing to do with her and everything to do with me.
Mhm.
And so, the answer is kind of twofold. Yes, I feel like the beauty of this manifestation of what has kind of been building up over the course of my lifetime.
Yeah.
But also, I feel this heaviness in this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I never want to negate the fact that parenting a child with any kind of differing needs is hard. And we have to have community for that. And we have to have, connection.
Mhm.
And we also have to be willing to admit, like, oh my goodness, she's so much better than anything that I could have imagined. And it's also really hard. And that's okay because, hard does not equate bad. It just is different. And
Right.
I'm growing and she's growing. And um, so, yeah, I think putting it in one or the other,
Yeah.
limits it. But I think that I definitely feel that.
Yeah. And I think one of our most frequent conversations surrounds this like peeling back of the onion of
Mhm.
all the things that, and every single person on this planet is guilty of this, where we think we're like, hey, I'm like you just said it earlier, like old Misty before Jed was like a decent, kind person, but there were so many things I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
so when you're all of a sudden forced in our situation as parents, or maybe in your job or in your you decide I'm going to advocate for this thing and you realize, "Oh my gosh, I have decades worth of undoing."
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, you and I both were like high achieving, like go, 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 go getters. And then all of a sudden we have this child who's like changing the pace. And it doesn't mean they don't have awesome things to do in their own book, in their own way, but we had a different pace. So
Absolutely.
to have to like unpeel those layers, it's hard work. It's daily work, like what you said, you
hmm
know?
Yeah, and I think it's so countercultural that you also have all these other factors that are playing into it, right? And so you have, a job or you have, this pressure to put your kids in all these activities to be successful. You have, if you go to church, you have, the limitations that come with sometimes, places not being made for your child. And there are so many different societal and cultural norms that play into that too.
Yeah.
And so I think that trying to undo that in myself and then also find ways to gracefully and tactfully make change because in my experience, and this isn't always the case, I can be as abrasive as anybody else. Most of the time, people just don't know. And so they just need to be educated.
Right.
And To be clear, there are plenty of times where people they know and they're doing it on purpose. And you know, steeling myself for those situations is important as well. And so um I I think that I've definitely been equipped with the things that I need to be Lucy's mom. And if I haven't, then I'm gonna get there because, she's mine. And um my love for her is going to crack any system that is built against her. I am formidable enough as her mom to do it, and I have to claim that in myself.
Yep.
And I tell other parents, you have to claim that in yourself. You have to know I love my child enough to break even the ableism and the ugly parts in myself. And
Yes.
it's painful.
And you mentioned a big part of being able to handle that and grow from that is community. And
Mhm.
that's the streamline of this podcast and of life is that no matter what pain or trial or change you're going through, you cannot do it alone. And those who try to, I think, end up, and I don't want to generalize, but I think that those times that I've thought, well, I'll just sequester myself and like deal with this myself, what I find is like a change in my heart, like a shift in my heart, like a coldness, a bitterness. Why is this hard lot only for me? Nobody likes me, everybody hates me. Guess I'll go eat worms. Like this special, I'm special in my pain, right? But
Yeah.
when you have a community, whether you've, God forbid, lost a child or you're dealing
Mhm.
with a health diagnosis or something, and you realize I'm not the only one who has
Mhm.
experienced this pain, it changes the whole game, right? Like, I mean, just
Absolutely.
to have that and to know, wow, I'm not the only one struggling with this. It's
Yes, that idea of, I've heard it said before, like the most comforting words. Obviously, this was before, before political parts of this, but the most comforting words in the world are me too. Like, yes, I see you, I know you. We are vulnerable with one another, and I know what that feels like.
yes.
And I think the best and most honest relationships that I've had in any areas of my life are the ones where I feel like I can say, hey, this is a really messy piece of me. And the other person says, I will love you through that. I will do what I need to do to help you and to tell you that it's okay for you to be in this space. And um yeah, I think that community cannot be, valued enough when
Yeah.
it comes to this journey, because it's what we were made for as human beings. We were made to be in relationship with each other, and it's important for people to find their people and to cheer on other people. It's really easy to want to, take these little pieces and say like, this is mine, and I love to write, and so this is my thing. But oh my goodness, what a great opportunity to say, yes, me too. And I see you and I know the beauty and the joy that comes from this thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, that was beautiful. And so, I mean, the whole time I'm like, preach. But you mentioned I want to hear, will you talk to as we sort of close out, can you share a little bit about what led you to write your beautiful book? And tell us a little bit about it, and I'll have in the show notes where people can order it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wrote 21 is the name. And I actually wrote the majority of it while Lucy was still in the NICU after her birth, which now almost feels a little laughable because there were so many things that I was going to learn from that time on. But the idea behind it is the 21 lessons that I had learned at that time from my daughter with her extra copy of a 21st chromosome. And I started writing kind of as a way of trying to find some peace and to work through my feelings, but also because, we were in this period of quarantine and I was very isolated, and I went online and I started looking for people who had had an experience like mine. And the overwhelming majority of what I saw was good in essence. It was the idea of, my child is worthy, my child is valuable, my child is phenomenal. Here are all the things that my child with Down syndrome can do. But I couldn't find anything where people talked about where I was. I knew that I would get there, that, I love my daughter, I care about her, I want her, I chose her, she is mine. But I needed something that said, it's okay if you are struggling to find control in really weird areas. I wrote a whole chapter on how her wardrobe is 10 times better than anyone else's in the house because I found control
Yeah.
in buying her clothes. I mean, and it's silly things like that, but with a much deeper purpose behind them. And so um, it gave me a lot of healing in the process of, being in the hospital with her and being pretty isolated. And it also forced me into a lot of introspection on why certain things bothered me and why it was difficult. And so I had the opportunity to write that, and I could probably write four sequels by now on all the other lessons that she's taught me. But
But what
um, I,
a beautiful
but
time capsule for that time, though.
yes, I really wanted something that captured where I was in those early days after her birth and diagnosis, um, because I couldn't find something like that when
Hmm.
I needed it. And so I wanted it to be available for other people, um, and also selfishly to kind of capture that moment in time for myself, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, it did both. And I think having heard from lots of moms in the NICU right after birth, that's when a lot of people find happiness is Down syndrome because they're searching for some sort of something like you were. And then they'll maybe like come across somebody whose baby's in the hospital and they're like, oh my gosh, there might be someone else out there like me. Because when you're in that position, you feel like you're the only one. You feel like
Yes.
you literally are the only person who has this lot. And but what a gift to your family and to the world to be able to share those moments of like that duality of grief, and also that the joy is there because it's your baby, but you also know that there's so much more to come, and you're like living in the more to come. And I think it really shakes me when I think, gosh, our kids are only 4.
They're so young, they're so tiny.
Lessons ahead of us.
Yeah.
I mean, it just boggles my mind. Like, how evolved are we going to be?
And how lucky are
I
we?
know.
I tell people all the time, like, I am the luckiest to live in like the post Heather Avis Down syndrome community. You know what I mean? Like, not post because she's in it, but the idea that all of these moms, I could list off 15 moms off the top of my head who made great change
Yes.
in preparation for our children. And, they did it because they were being moms,
Yeah.
but it has made a significant impact on what is done now for my child. And so I say all the time, like, we have so much to learn from these moms who are further down this road than we are. Um, and I'm so grateful
Yeah.
to live in this day and age where I have the ability to reach out to them and to learn from them and grow. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm beyond grateful to be in this time with
Oh,
Lucy.
absolutely. And when you hear about the stories from 40 years ago, if you ever find somebody walking with an adult with Down syndrome, go and talk to them and hear about their journey. Because as hard as we think things are today, oh my gosh, what they faced even
Absolutely.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago were just, I mean, the stories that you hear, but they will say, like, I had someone who mentored me, or I learned from them, or whatever. But the 15 moms you probably just mentioned probably said, oh yeah, I read this book, or I met this person who poured into me. And so I would just say, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, gosh, I don't really have anything to give back, I just have an 8-month-old baby, I would say you absolutely do, because the
Yes.
things that you've gone through can help somebody who's pregnant, can help
Mhm.
somebody who's in the NICU, right? It can help somebody, whatever it is that you've gone through, that pain or that struggle or that just fight of your life that you've gone through. will be a treasure trove for somebody else to talk about.
Yes. And it can help me. The idea that, I learn all the time from moms who are new to this journey and ask me questions. And I say, I haven't really thought about that, or I haven't really, explored that. I had a brand new mom the other day who was talking to me about able accounts and, in educating me on some things that I didn't know. And so I just think, gosh, how lucky are we that we have the opportunity to do that?
Yeah, we really are. And we have cultivated and found those communities, and there is always community to be found. If you're listening to this and you're grieving with something, I encourage you to check out Nothing is Wasted Ministries, because they specialize in finding whatever trial, trouble you're going through and connecting you with either a mentor or community. And that is huge. But Amanda, you have just been such a blessing to me personally, to Rod's Heroes, to our community. And your fire and your passion and your love for your baby girl and your family is just contagious. And I hope you know that you inspire and encourage me daily. And I know that someone is going to be encouraged from what you've shared today. So thank you for sharing your time, friend.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be a part, and looking forward to everything to come.
And I can't wait to meet you. So funny. I'll never stop thinking it's funny.
I love it, honestly.
It happens when I go to conferences sometimes. I'm like, how am I just now meeting you? Like, I feel like we've known each other our whole lives. It's so bizarre.
But when you build relationship, like in the midst of trial, you do become a lot closer to people. I have like a whole slew of moms online that I have this deep connection to, that it's like I might never meet them in person. Like,
Crazy. It's crazy.
it's nuts.
But it's the power of community and knowing that, like you said, we live in a really great time. Say what you will about social media, but social media, I don't know where I would be on this journey without it.
Absolutely. I agree.
COVID mamas will know what I'm talking about.
It's a different, there is something about that, like 2020 baby group, that because we needed it. We needed connection, and
it was our lifeline. It was our lifeline, and we came through it, and we're here. Yeah. We're here to talk about it. But thank you again, Amanda, and be sure to check out the show notes so you can see more of Amanda and follow her on social media and get her amazing book. And I love you so much.
Love you.
Thanks for listening to Bold Voices, Soft Hearts. We hope you'll share this episode with a friend, leave a review, and keep using your voice to spread light in the world. Bold Voices, Soft Hearts.